Hey folks, Nathan here. Welcome back to Nate's favorite deck building games. Last time we looked at the crossover packs, but we left one out. We looked at 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. But number 4 is Watchmen. And Watchmen's crossover pack really changes up the game and makes it play very different than any other version of the DC deck building game, to the point where it almost feels more like a Legendary Series game from Upper Deck than it does a DC deck building game from Cryptozoic. But it's a cool new format. This actually was in high demand when first released, went out of print. They then put out more of them. Thank goodness I was finally able to get my hands on one. It's a bit thicker. It is more cards and more stuff to do than the regular DC deck building game or any of the other crossover packs. To the point where instead of a rule supplement card, you get a full-sized rule supplement. Very much, really, again, kind of like the way that it usually works with Legendary. Now, for those of you who are interested in Watchmen, by the way, I would point out that if you got a 4K television and an Ultra HD Blu-ray player, they just recently put out the Ultimate Cut of Watchmen on 4K Ultra HD. That's the one that basically takes the director's cut version of the film, which is actually included with it on Blu-ray. Only the 4K one is the Ultimate Cut. It takes that, but it integrates Tales of the Black Freighter into it very much like the original comic. Unfortunately, it doesn't do that with Under the Hood, the documentary, but it is still on the discs. So this one's going to change up your gameplay quite a bit. It starts out basic enough, right? Most of the crossover packs, the latter ones, have 6 new oversized superheroes, or supervillains as the case may be. And that's the case this time too. We have Dr. Manhattan, the Comedian, Silk Spectre, Rorschach, Ozymandias, and Night Owl. No surprise there, right? The main Watchmen characters. But then you have 6 challenge cards of challenge level 3, 2, or 1. 2 of each. You also have some new main deck cards, but not many. 11. Most of the latter sets had 23. Most of the middle ground sets had 14. The original set had 10. This time it's only 11. You also have 5 loyalty cards. You then also have 5 Mastermind plot cards. And then you have 4 so-called villainous machination cards. So we know this game's going to be a bit different because we have all kinds of different card types we've never seen before. So first you're going to pick a main set. I would recommend the original set, Heroes Unite, or Teen Titans. So at least you're dealing primarily with hero terminology as opposed to Forever Evil, which changes up the terminology between heroes and villains. You're going to take your new main deck cards and shuffle them into that set. Now, the instructions this time say nothing about doing the whole thing I mentioned last time of cutting the main deck in half, shuffling the new cards into one side, not the other, and putting the side with the new cards on top so it's easier to get to those crossover cards. But again, I would recommend it for this. But it's not anywhere within the rules to maximize your crossover experience. But they're going to wind up in your main deck along with whatever main deck for the set that you chose. You're going to deal out your superheroes so you can play as your superheroes. But it's the ones from Watchmen, right? Not the ones that go with the regular set. Just like every other crossover pack, you take out the old superheroes or supervillains, add in the ones from the pack. But then you're going to break out those loyalty cards. Most of them say you are loyal. You want to contribute cards to the challenges and make sure the main deck doesn't run out of cards. But there's one that says you are the secret mastermind. You will want to collect the cards needed for the public villainous machinations card. If the main deck runs out and the lineup cannot be refilled, you win the game. You may recall that in most games, if that happens, it just stops and you count the victory points. Or in crisis games, if that happens, everybody loses. In this case, you have loyal players who are working essentially together, trying to complete challenges, but you also have a secret mastermind who wants the deck to run out before the challenges are beaten. So either your heroes will win, the loyal characters, or the secret mastermind will win. There are different win conditions as we go along here. But you're going to say, okay, let's say we have 4 players. We need 1 to be the secret mastermind, 1, 2, 3 to get 4. Shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. Everybody randomly gets a loyalty card. You just deal them out. So you don't know who is the secret mastermind. Now, you can look at your card, but nobody else is going to know who the secret mastermind is. They got to be kind of guessing who's loyal and who's not. It's a lot like the Hidden Agendas version of playing the Legendary Encounters Alien game, if you've ever played that, which we'll see soon on the show. Well, okay, not soon. This is me, after all. So you got your superhero, you've been dealt your loyalty, you know what it is, you stick it underneath without anybody else knowing. You do the same thing with Mastermind plot cards. You shuffle them up, you deal them out, one to each player, they look at it, see what it says, stick it underneath. The Mastermind plot card is a challenge. It's a challenge Mastermind plot, have a title up at the top, say Secret Mastermind ongoing with some ability, and something there for loyal players. But you look at it, figure out what it is, again, slip it underneath. You then have your 4 villainous machinations, you shuffle these, and this game does not have any supervillains to fight. It's challenges to deal with, kind of like Crisis, without supervillains to go with it. Once you shuffle these cards, you're going to randomly pick one. The other ones just go back in the game box, and that one goes face up where the supervillain stack used to be. Then you're going to take your challenge cards, separate out the 3 from the 2 from the 1, randomly get 1 from each, put 3 on the bottom. Let's go with the second one, maybe 2 then, and then on the top, 1. And then the first one will wind up flipping. And you sit this somewhere where everybody can see it. Your challenge cards are generally going to have some type of ongoing thing happening, a challenge area that says to beat, contribute, which plays a lot like the 3rd Crisis expansion, and it'll then have an amount to beat. Again, the other ones just go back in the box. So again, everybody's got a loyalty card underneath, everybody's got a mastermind plot underneath. You've got your 3 challenges with level 1 face up, then 2 underneath it, then 3 underneath it, and you've got 1 of the villainous machinations in play over here for supervillains face up. That's your setup, and then you just go ahead and give everybody a regular starting deck. You've already put your new main deck cards into the main deck. You are ready to go. Now, what the loyal players are going to try to do is take out the challenges 1, 2, and 3. In order to win, they got to take out all the challenges. The challenge stack basically has to be empty at that point. The ongoing ability affects everyone, loyal and mastermind alike. The challenge here, to beat, contribute, blah, 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 works very much like Crisis Expansion 3. On your turn, you put cards up here that you think could work to contribute, and eventually, once you've met all the contribution requirements amongst all the different players, in this case, you then still have to turn around and have one player generate enough power to actually knock it out. So in that sense, it's kind of like Crisis 3, where you contribute to get rid of the Crisis, but then you still then have to go after the supervillain with one player having enough power to knock them out. Think of that as kind of that supervillain cost if you're used to Crisis Expansion 3. But contribute until you've got enough, then somebody beats it. Get rid of this one, flip up 2. Same thing again. Eventually, 3, same thing again, only once they defeated the last one, the game is won by the loyal players. Now, meanwhile, someone is the secret mastermind. Oh, and they can contribute to look like they're loyal, but they don't have to, any more than a loyal player has to contribute, even if they have a card that might be able to contribute, though the other players might get pissed off at you if you don't. But if you're the evil mastermind, then you've got something here that is your requirement. They all say basically the same thing, but the requirements are different. If the secret mastermind plays the following cards during a single turn, they add their mastermind plot card to the challenge area. So if I'm playing a 2 to 3 player game, then 4 or greater cost superpower, 3 cost superpower, 4 or less cost villain, 4 or greater cost superpower, 5 or greater cost equipment. So if I have all these things to play on one turn and I'm the secret mastermind, I can play them, boom, and I've set off the next stage of the game. That said, if you're playing with more than 2 to 3 players, it says 2 to 3 players only, then you ignore that first line. Every one of them's got a first line you ignore unless it's a 2 to 3 player game because it makes it a little bit more of a pain to get what you need there. Okay, so say I'm the mastermind, I managed to play all those cards on a single turn, boom, I've managed to pull off the villainous machinations there. What that then means is that as the secret mastermind, I'm going to pull my 2 cards out from underneath my character. I'm going to reveal to everyone that I'm the secret mastermind, so that is now out in the open. I knew it, but they didn't. And I'm going to take my mastermind plot, whatever it is, again, it's randomly drawn out, and this presents another challenge. I'm going to take this and stick it up here next to the other challenges, and now, instead of defeating 3 challenges to win the game, the loyal players have to defeat 4 because they've got to beat mine also. They can still do these in order, but that's also out there to be gone after at the same time, and generally the cost is a bitch. The cost of 9, 11, or 14 on the regular challenges once you've met the requirement for contribution. In this case, the cost is 24. The other players then bust out their loyalty card and just say, yeah, I was loyal. And their mastermind plot cards mean nothing. It only matters whenever the villainous, evil mastermind winds up pulling theirs out and adds it as a challenge. And these are going to have a secret mastermind ongoing ability that only affects the mastermind's turn, giving them some type of advantage. Okay? And there's a special help or a call for aid ability to knock out that insane cost. Loyal players, when you attempt to defeat this challenge, since there's nothing to contribute in this case, it's just the straight power number here, when you attempt to beat this challenge, each other loyal player may add 1 random card from their hand to the fight. So you can work as a team, but not in perfect teamwork because you don't get to choose what card you contribute to help in the fight. You just randomly contribute 1. But it's still better than nothing and might actually give your side a chance to knock out the mastermind there. I would also note that unlike the confrontations or rivals sets, no, you don't have to declare something to go after a challenge. You just do it. Just like in, say, the Crisis expansions. You just do it. It's going after a challenge, not the same thing as a confrontation. So how does the secret mastermind win? When the main deck runs completely out, there's nothing left to refill the lineup, and you've got to refill the lineup as soon as you can't grab a card, boom, the mastermind wins. That is actually, again, noted down here at the bottom of their loyalty card. Again, how do the heroes win? They defeat all the challenges. Either just these 3, or if it turns out that the mastermind's able to pull off their villainous machinations and pull out their mastermind plot, yes, it does require knocking out that 4th one as well. What happens if we get to the point where, say, the challenges are defeated and the mastermind has never been revealed? Well, then everybody turns up their loyalty card, we figure out who it was that was the mastermind who didn't pull off their plot, and all the loyal players win, but the mastermind automatically loses, even if they were never revealed in the process. So it's a cool new way of playing the DC deck building game that completely changes up what you're trying to do and makes it a little bit more like the Crisis expansions, adds a little bit of sort of a hidden agenda aspect to it, not knowing who's loyal to who, but also adding in some assist style abilities to help each other when you're going after that mastermind plot. It's kind of a cool way to twist the game, but it works best when you're dealing with, again, 2 to 3 players. You can go all the way up to 5, with the biggest difference between, say, 3 players versus 4 or 5 being that the little top line of the villainous machination goes away. But if you're playing just a 2-player game, then duh, it's going to be obvious who the secret mastermind is, because if you're not it, of course the other player is. Duh. So instead, what you would do for just a 2-player game is during your setup, instead of grabbing just 2 loyalty cards, 1 for each player with 1 being the mastermind, what you do is instead you'd grab 3, and you'd shuffle them and deal each player 1 card that's kept face down until you look at it, and you put the 3rd one back in the box. So in theory, either one of you is the secret mastermind, but it could be that neither of you is, and you're basically playing in sort of a state of paranoia, wondering if the other person is with you or against you, or knowing that you're the mastermind. Another twist to that is that usually when you defeat the second challenge, the 3rd one just flips up and the game continues normally. But if you're playing just a 2-player game, and it turns out that the villainous mastermind hasn't revealed themselves yet, then what will happen is as soon as the 3rd one flips up to become the new current challenge, everybody flips up their loyalty card. And if it turns out that one of them is the it can still work on trying to get their machinations out there. It it's a chance for them to kind of push forward a little bit more quickly. But time is running out on them, right? Because they're only down to one challenge left, and unless they can get that Mastermind plot out there, next challenge gets beaten, Mastermind loses. They've got to get it out there to try to slow down the progression and let that lineup run out, so the main deck has to try to fill it when there aren't any cards there so they can actually win. What's interesting, though, is that let's say you're playing with that variant, the third one flips up, you both reveal your loyalty cards, turns out that you did the whole thing with the 3 cards, and it turns out that neither of you is the Mastermind. You're both loyal. Well, in that case, you basically discovered a secret plot by supervillains out there, and you grab 8 random supervillains with a cost of 10 or more from whatever set you're using as your base set, shuffle them up, and stick them next to your kicks and weaknesses over here, kind of near where the villainous machinations have taken up the supervillain spot. And now you basically expose them in a plot trying to take over the world. And yes, you have to defeat the challenge and every single one of those 8, 10-plus power supervillains in order for you to win the day. Otherwise, you both lose. So even if there's no secret Mastermind in a 2-player game, you still wind up with some extra challenge beyond a Mastermind plot, because that won't come into play, because the supervillains come into play. And yeah, it sucks kind of because the supervillains coming in, they're all 10 plus power, but imagine a 2-player game where your Mastermind plot comes out, the one player playing against the Mastermind's got to come up with the full 24, so that's going to be a real pain in the butt. So it's a cool, unique challenge for those who are really into the DC deck building game, but really want some change up in their gameplay. Even if you are sick of the Crisis expansions, even if you've done the other crossover packs and seen how they affect the game a little bit, this is one of the biggest ways to change up your game and make for a really unusual experience for the DC deck building game that's still fun, but is going to make you have to think about your gameplay and your strategy in very different ways than you otherwise would. I would highly recommend, if you're into the DC deck building game, whether you've checked out any Crisis expansions or not, definitely check out the Watchmen pack. Unless you want to go for the same game type every single time, it's definitely the way to go to change things up for the least amount of money and biggest game-changing impact.